theories, okay? Oh, looks like we only have time to cover the theories today. Let's see what we can do. Okay. So next is this Eric Trist's Socio-technical system theory, STS. And I think I already mentioned this one just now, right? You have seen it already. So it introduces the concept of people change and techno-structural change, okay? Technical means techno-structural change, right? For organization, which is also the early days open system concept. See that? So it's the thing. So if you see that the organization is implementing structural change and techno-system change and people process change, whatever, then you can say that it's quite clear that the organization implemented these people change, this change, structural change that put people into different process, into different roles, right? What are you guys looking at? Okay, so you can say that the organization may make a change. It seems that the organization change include this, right? Putting people into different roles to play different things, and then also introduces a set of new processes, a new system, and all that thing. So quite clear that this organization implemented both social aspect of the change as well as techno-structural change, which is well described by Socio-technical system STS by Eric Trist. If you describe the change in this way, then you get score. Okay, next is this John Kotter's 8-step model, right? And I think you guys should be quite familiar with this one, if I'm not wrong, right? Based on your case study and all that. And this one should be, it's not in your standard text, but I think many of you would have already one way or another covered it in most cases. So let me just kind of highlight it a little bit here. Because this is one of the very, very famous things nowadays. After the Lewin's 3-step, then Kotter's 8-step is probably the next one that is very, very famous, right? So if you look at the model, it has got 8 steps, okay? First is establishing a sense of urgency. Establishing a sense of urgency, right? Second step is what? Creating the guiding coalition, right? Third step is what? Developing a vision and strategy, right? Fourth step is what? Communicating the change vision, right? Number 5 is what? Empowering broad-based action, right? Number 6 is what? Generating short-term wins. Okay. Number 7, consolidating gains and producing more change, right? Number 8 is what? Angering new approaches in the culture. Number 8 is actually sustaining. Okay, it's just saying it a different way. Okay. Now I want you guys to pay attention to some of the specific about the sustaining thing, right? For creating better performance through customer and productivity-oriented behavior, more and better leadership, more effective management. See that? Then it's articulating the connections between new behavior and organizational success. Number 3, developing means to ensure leadership development and succession. Okay, so these are all important aspects to sustain the new change. Now, Kotter's change approach is quite different from the so-called traditional approach, right? Why? Because although it bears resemblance as Lewin's 3-step model, but it also differs completely from Lewin's model. Why? Because in Lewin's model, it didn't stress about establishing sense of urgency. Right? This concept of sense of urgency was formally introduced by Kotter. So it's very important. A lot of organizations, when they want to do transformational change, they didn't do this step, establishing a sense of urgency. That's why they fail. This is a very important step. Okay. In the BA case, for example, 1997, when they go through a second revolution, right? Then they fail miserably. They tried to do a second revolution, they failed miserably because they didn't establish the sense of urgency. Okay. And then second is creating the guiding coalition. What do you mean by creating guiding or coalition? That means putting together a group with enough power to lead the change effort. Getting the group to work together as a team. Now here, actually, is very important. This means it's not just the management who is doing the change. They need to bring in the employee together to form a coalition. And if the union is there, then they need to make sure that the union is part of the coalition to make it success. So that's very important. Now, BA obviously committed the mistake in 1997 that they didn't form the right coalition. That's why they failed in the second attempt. Okay? Now, the other thing unique about Kotter's model is the step number 6. Okay? Number 6. Generating short-term wins. See that? Generating short-term wins. So his concept of change is not like try to implement a big change and take 3 years to complete. No, that's not what he proposed. He proposed that change should be iterative and in small steps and fast. And small wins generate big wins. That's the idea. If you want to achieve transformational change, the way to do it is that create a sense of urgency and do it iteratively and very fast, in cycles, small wins. Eventually become a big win. That's the whole idea. Because when you have small win, the theory is that if you have small win, you build confidence in an employee. And it creates more confidence in the employee and reducing the cynicism from employee. Right? Because a lot of resistance is coming from employee. Are you sure this can be good? This can be successful? Employee not certain. So when you build small wins, you build that confidence. That's the whole idea, and reduce the resistance in a way. Okay? So this is another uniqueness about Kotter's model. Okay? Any question?
No.
Okay, good. Then next one is this Edwin Locke and Peter Drucker's goal setting theory. Again, these two theories is very, very important, and they are very, very valid still today in the real world. Some of the organizations practice MBO, right? I suppose. I think Shaktin, I heard from you, and also Naveen, right? You guys practice this MBO, your organization. Do you know who it comes from? It comes from Peter Drucker, right? Peter Drucker. He's one of the very, very famous change guru, okay? And MBO was established by him. And it's still valid today, and it's probably one of the very essential tools for organization to be successful nowadays, okay? Because this will make sure that when an organization establishes a strategy or a goal at the top level, then it's translated down to the lower layer until every employee, all their goals and their actions is aligned to this organization strategy. It's very important. Okay. Now, before MBO was introduced, sorry, is there a question? So before MBO was introduced, right? Then it was so-called goal-setting theory, okay? And that it started off from Edwin Locke, okay? Edwin Locke, goal-setting theory. So they are the similar thing, okay? It's just that MBO was more structured, whereas goal setting theory was like setting goals, right? So it's a bit more generic in that sense. But MBO has a set of very specific actions you should take and the process to follow through for that, how to set goals. Now read what I have here. An important tool to align employees' actions to organization strategy or direction that is still pretty much valid and useful in today's organizations. SMART principles is often lacking in organization practicing MBO, leading to many issues. Okay, can all of you tell me what is SMART? No? Okay, it stands for
specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound.
Yes, very good. Right. Specific, measurable,
attainable,
achievable, realistic,
attainable,
yeah, and time-bound.
yeah.
So let me ask you, if your manager set a goal for you that says like this, the organization need to be able to become competitive this year. So hence, you as an engineer, one of the goals for you in order to support the organization to become productive is to complete the replacement of the ERP system from the current system, which is very slow and mundane, to a modernized SAP cloud version. Finish. That's it. That's the goal for you. Complete this replacement of a system. Now, do you think this goal meets the criteria of SMART? Is it specific? Maybe, maybe not. Right? Is it measurable? Is there anything that can be measured there? No. Is it achievable? Maybe, maybe not. To replace an ERP system within a year may be achievable, maybe not achievable, but no. Probably yes, probably no. Right? Is it realistic? Not sure. Right? Is it time bound? Huh? No. He didn't say when you can complete. You can take 10 years to complete that. Right? He didn't say. So a good goal should be that complete this replacement system by the end of this year. Then it's time bound. Right? Then it meets part of the SMART criteria. Now, if it's not time bound, that's where there's a debate at the end of the year, right? You and your manager has a debate. Who wins? The manager cannot measure you whether you're successful or not. Then the organization fails. Maybe the organization expect you to be within a year, but it didn't say. Then there's a problem, right? There's an issue there. Okay. Is it measurable? It's not measurable. How do we measurable? Then the goal should say something like this. complete the replacement of this system by the end of this year and ensure that there is zero occurrence of major incident downtime and achieve 99% uptime within 3 months of implementation. Now, is this measurable? Or maybe you say, and ensure that there is no major defects in the system within 1 month after rollout. Is this measurable? So it has to be measurable. Now the achievable or not, the one in this particular case we can't judge. It has to be specific. When you actually do it, then you can judge, right? So forget about the other one, but these two criteria already can be very specific. So many organizations didn't state didn't state measurable and time-bound criteria. Therefore, it's difficult to measure the employee at the end of the day. And therefore, even though they implement MBO, they do set goals at the beginning of the year, but at the end of the year, no use. It's no use. Cannot appraise the employee fairly at the end of the day. And the consequences to the organization, the organization cannot be successful at that. Because the employee don't know that he need to make sure he complete within 1 year. If he didn't complete 1 year, the company in trouble at the end of the day. Right now? Right? So that's the whole problem. So goal setting theory basically is like this, okay? The organization overall has its own objective or goals. Then it got mapped down every layer, right? So from a divisional manager or VP or whatever, then they have their goal set and aligned to the organization goal. The organization goal is the CEO goal, right? CEO may say, okay, we need to expand market share by 10% this year for this product, for example, as an example, right? Then that will map down maybe to for that product, the product manager, he need to make sure that he will increase the sales by 10%, 20%, and reduce the cost by another 10% to achieve that 20% of the organization, something like that. Okay. Then department level, depending on department, maybe IT, for example, is to be able to implement a very responsive ERP system to be able to support the increased sales and complete within 1 year, and not use more than 5 million budget, which is important to achieve the cost control here, something like that, right? The individual, maybe you need to complete, if you are a software engineer, for example, right? They say you have to complete development of a specific module within the time given for the project timeline for each phase, right? Design, development, testing, and all that, and ensure that there's zero major defect after MTP, something like that. So this could be it. So that's how all the goals are aligned eventually, and that's how you manage it. Okay? Goal setting theory. So I want you guys to go and check it out in the BA case later on. Is there any goal setting theory that's applicable? Next, Likert's System 4 Management Model. Likert's System 4 Management Model, and this should also have been covered in your lecture 1 to 4 by Professor Elizabeth. Okay. This model introduces the concept of autocratic versus consultative or participative approach in managing organizational change. Meaning what? This is Likert's model. So, describe, right? He developed this management model that described organization as so-called System 1, System 2, System 3, System 4. Okay, System 1 are the totally bureaucratic organization. System 4 are the totally participative organization, and 2 and 3 is somewhere in between. Okay, so this kind of model basically means whether your organization is very autocratic or very participative, or consultative. Okay, take a look at some details here. You can do a survey on the organization and understand whether your organization is System 1 or System 2 or System 3 or System 4. Okay? And your survey can go like this. Communication. How is downward communication accepted? With suspicion or readily? How is upward communication accepted? How is upward communication accepted? Is it with suspicion or readily? What is the direction of communication? Down only, or down, up, and sideways? Or mostly down? Down and up? Okay? So System 3 is consultative. System 4 is participative. System 1 is autocratic. System 2 is so-called benevolent autocratic. Is like a fatherly type. I tell you, you do. Whereas the autocratic is like, I'm the boss, you're the employee, just listen to me. Right? So the difference between 1 and 2 is that 1 is completely autocratic, no caring. But number 2, System 2 is that you listen to me because I care for you. Okay? Right? That kind of style. Okay? Number 3 is consultative. Whatever the manager want to do, consult employee. Okay? Number 4 is, everything employee, you recommend first, Not like I consult you. You recommend what to do. So that's participative. Okay? So in Resistance Likert's model, his theory basically advocates that in order for an organization to be good, to be effective, you need to be in System 4. That's his theory. But in today's world, is it true that when you're in System 4, you'll be effective? No, the answer is no. That was that time. That was the time. That time everybody believed in that. Right? But now, not everybody believes in that. Okay? Because also there's problem with time. Now we need to be fast, right? So the System 4 is slow. Employee motivation is high. Because compete in marketplace, it can be slow. 3 and 4, compete in marketplace, it will be slower. Right? 1 and 2 is very fast. Right? So nowadays, that's why it's hard to say which one is the better one. But you can use this to describe the organization. Okay? Okay. So back to here. Resistance Likert's System 4 introduces the concept of autocratic versus consultative and participative approach in managing organizational change. How can you use it? If you see that the case described that the management always involved the employee in terms of decision making, then do you think it's participative or consultative? It is, right? Then you can describe, the organization apparently is it's quite clear that the management practices consultation and participative communication and management decision making with the employee, and certainly according to Likert, that will boost up the morale and the satisfaction of the employee and increase their buy-in to support the change and therefore reduce the resistance. And as a result, that's why the organization was very successful in the change. Right? This is in line with Likert's model, Likert's System 4 model. Okay. I say that the organization clearly is very autocratic because it was clear that the CEO set up a management practice that did not consult the employee and demand very highly on employee, and the system is very rigid and implemented only top down. Right? So from the Likert's model, apparently this is clearly this is a autocratic system. And by nature, autocratic systems has its advantage and disadvantage. In this way, right? Advantage is what? Disadvantage is what? You know. So for the change that's needed here. Okay. Next, let's take a look at Dunphy and Stace contingency approach. Dunphy and Stace contingency approach, and this also should have been covered in your lecture 1 to 4 by Professor Elizabeth, right? And this model is very, very important because of its contingency approach. It deviates from the normal approach, in the sense that normal approach says what? You plan the change and then you implement the change, right? But Dunphy and Stace believe that no change is perfect. So the best way is to change along the way as you change. That's the whole idea, right? All right? So that's the philosophy behind it. And it's especially useful today because the world is changing so fast. You know? So if you take 3 years to change, to make a big change, by the time you finish the change, the world has changed again. That's the problem, right? Correct? So that's why he believes that make small change, and after that, see what works, what doesn't, then change again. That's the whole idea, right? So it's quite similar to Kotter's theory in the sense that make small change. That's the idea. Make small wins, okay? So it introduces the concept that major organization changes that takes long time to complete may yield an organization that's not relevant or competitive to the environment due to the rapid pace of change in the environment. Allocates short cycle and adaptive change on the go, which is pretty suitable for today's highly volatile world. Okay? Alright. So how do you use this one? When you analyze a case, look at the case, the outcome, was it successful? Was it not successful? Okay. If it was successful, then how did the organization change? Did they adapt the changes along the way? Did they do it in small cycle or did they do it in big cycle? Still quite a lot of organizations nowadays try to do a big change and take a longer time, like 1 year or 2 to finish. Then you can criticize it using this model. The organization apparently have implemented the change through a period of 3 years. Like in the case of BA, right? They take 10 years to change. That same kind of change, if they try to implement today, it's going to fail miserably for sure. Yeah, right? So assuming they are doing that case to now, and then they do that change, and then the chances the outcome fail, right? Then you say, oh, apparently the change was over a period of 10 years. So obviously, in today's fast-paced and volatile environment, this is not suitable. In fact, according to Dunphy and Stace, a contingency approach would be a better one, because in a volatile environment like today, we want to make small change and adapt the change according to how the environment changes along the way to create more successes, in order to achieve a final success. Right? That's how you use this approach. Okay? Next is this Dennis Rochelle psychological contract. Again, I think Professor Elizabeth should have covered this for you guys. Okay? It highlights the often neglected hidden contract between an employee and the leadership that should not be broken to ensure good employee performance and retaining talents. So a psychological contract is not a contract you sign between the employee and a company, right? It is a virtual contract, right? It is a virtual contract or a hidden contract between you and the company. Why you guys are copying?
We can use it. You have to use this in case.
Oh. So it's for instance, the case we discussed something like this, right? Or the employee was totally dissatisfied. I don't think he will say something like this. This is too obvious. You don't give you too obvious thing one. They say, the union was resisting the change and planning for a strike, something like that. And because the organization was on a cost reduction drive. Right? Then you can say that only when the employee signed up when the employee joined the organization, over the period of time that they work, they already established a certain set of transactional and transactional psychological contract. And these are not explicitly stated but expected of the employee. For example, expected from the employee. For example, the employee would expect that the organization would take good care of them, because that's how it has been for the past 10 years, But now, basically, the organization is trying to do workforce reduction and is giving an impression to the employee that they are breaking the contract and throwing them out of the door, right? Which is completely breaking the psychological contract. Therefore, the employee are resisting. Back end. That is social. Okay. That's an example of how you use this. Okay? So if you read a little bit more, the psychological contract got two types, transactional versus relational, right? Relational, that means it's a kind of contract between you and your boss. You know that you do this, your boss will like you and give you higher performance, for example. Whereas transactional is that you do this, you get this reward. It's more monetary and very specific about things like that. Okay. And a lot of time, the psychological contract is something like an iceberg, right? The explicit one are the contract you sign with the company. The implicit one below the iceberg is what is in the psychological contract. Like your off day, how you will be recognized, and what kind of promotion you might get. Because most of these are not explicitly stated, right? But implicitly expected and built up over time between you and the company. Like that. Okay? Next is this Waddell and Cummings integrated strategic change. Right? This has been covered by me, and I hope you still remember. No? Okay. It says what? It's one of the many variants of strategic change that is the holy grail of modern days change philosophy, embraced by researchers and practitioners. Strategic change attempt to change the whole organization in terms of vision, direction, or orientation, product or services, culture, the way things get done here, and then management practices, policies, structures, blah, 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 and so on. Okay? Now let's take a look at what we could have been covered in terms of this integrated strategic change. Here's how it looks like. This should look a little bit familiar to you guys. Right? So if you look at the integrated strategic change, so we say that in order for organization to do transformational change, we say OT, alright? Then the intervention strategy consists of so-called ISC, integrated strategic change. Consists of organization design, which is structural change, consists of cultural change, right? And under the integrated strategic change, you would change you do strategic analysis, then you do the strategic choices. What are the choices you have, right? Like for example, maybe create new product, buy out another company, how you want to change your strategy, or maybe transform from home appliance kind of business into clean energy business like Panasonic kind of. So all these different choices, strategic analysis. Just like Panasonic, they analyze that home appliances cannot make money, right? So they completely change their strategy. They do the strategic analysis and they change the choice to select the green energy as the future strategy, right? Because that's where we make the bulk of the money and it's a growing market segment, right? Design. And then you design the organization in terms of like the structure, the process, the strategy, whatever not, right? All that thing. And then you implement. And so this integrated strategic change, right? Right? Or you can do organization design, which you focus on the strategy, the structure, the work design, the human resource practices, and the management information systems, okay? Or you do cultural change, right? But when we say integrated strategic change, just now in that context, right, in that file, when I say integrated strategic change, I'm more referring to this one, okay? This one. More referring to this one, okay? But to achieve transformational change, then you can do one of these three, or a combination of the three. Normally, it's a combination of the three, okay? A combination of the three. So this one you must remember by heart, because I'm almost sure the case study has got something to do with transformation. All these 3 years got all the past 2 years, the case, the change, right, is a transformational change. The case given is a transformational change. So I won't be surprised if it's also a transformational change. Some of the material here definitely can be used by you to talk about it, to criticize or to evaluate the change itself. Whether they have done well, not well, advantages, disadvantages, all those things, right? Use this to talk about. Okay? strategic change, actually, Waddell and Cummings are not the expert on this topic. Right? But I use them because they're the easiest reach for you. The materials is available easily. Okay? William Pasmore actually is the more prominent figure when it comes to strategic change. Okay? So he's actually the more prominent guy in terms of proposing strategic change. And strategic change is like this. One of the early advocates of strategic change in his book titled Designing the Flexible, High-Performing Organization. You can see that he's into like flexible and high-performing organization for strategic change, right? So that's about it. So if you want to say the organization should be flexible, should be high-performing, you can quote him, and it also should be strategic, then you can quote him. Okay. Edgar Shein, and I think I already explained culture change, right? Edgar Shein introduces the concept of culture in organization as several layers, which enable more structured way of tackling organization culture change instead of simply people's behavior. And if you remember, he introduced the concept of 4-layer organization culture. This one. Artifacts, norms, values, and assumptions, right? So a lot of time organizations making changes in the culture by forcing people to change their behavior, right? Which is the norms, right? But then they totally forgot that they need to inculcate the change in values and assumptions, right? So a lot of the time organizations only focus on artifacts, like stating all the rules, what are the do's and don'ts, right? New culture should behave like what, and then new behavior should be like what. But then they forgot about the values and the assumptions. So that's where you can use this model. The organization, apparently, according to Edgar Shein's model, they have done this to change the culture, which is really good, and that covers the artifacts and norm aspect of the culture of the organization, according to Edgar Shein. But it seems that the organization did not pay attention to changing the values of the assumptions, although they implemented a lot of training to change the behavior. But it wasn't evident that the values of the employee have changed, because there were some employees who will still believe in the old culture. They are just changing because the organization asking them to change. But the fundamental did not change, and therefore, after a few years, the organization performance started to deteriorate. You can use this like this. Okay. Next is Michael Porter's theory. Porter theory. Now, sorry, not Michael Porter, Michael Beer. Okay, this is Michael Beer. Okay, this guy like to drink beer. Parents must be, his ancestor must be making beers. Okay, so he has got two set of theories, which is one set of theories is this one. As I say here, it also introduced the concept of changing role to change behavior, leading to change of culture. So he advocates that in order to change the culture of an organization, you change the role of the people. Okay? So in the case of British Airline, did they change the role of people in order to change the behavior? Apparently no, they are just going through training to change people. So you could criticize and say that while training is important to bring in a new culture, a faster way to achieve change of culture perhaps could be by changing the roles of the employee to different roles. That's according to Michael Beer's approach. Right? That will drive a different behavior altogether. That will save for 10 years the organization needed to make the change. For example, okay? So you can say like that. Right? Then the other set of theory that is introduced by Michael Beer is not covered in your text so far, but I think it's important and applicable in almost any case, right? Is this so-called theory E and theory O. Okay. Categorizes organization changes today into economic driven or organizational driven. In economic driven changes, shareholder values is the measure of success. I mean, cost cutting, downsizing. In organization-driven changes, employees' capability to adapt to change is the focus, soft approach. So in the case of British Airline, they are emphasizing on the soft approach initially for the first 10 years, right, from 87 to 97. And that's called that's in line with the theory O. Okay, but then in 97 onwards, they try to make another change, which is based on theory E. Economic reason, they cut down costs, you know, they do downsizing, all that stuff, you know. But that's how you use this theory, right? You say, oh, what they changed is in line with Michael Peirce's theory E, or what they changed is in Michael Peirce's theory O. What are the advantages, disadvantages? You can go and do a bit of research yourself. Okay? I encourage you guys to go and do a bit of research on each of this. Otherwise, it'll be too much, man. You need to write up. Okay? But at least you get to know them and you can use them in some ways. Some way, even if you don't research it, you can think about what would be the benefits, what would be the strengths and weaknesses that you already can do yourself, right? It's quite trivial. Like downsizing all this, what's the benefits? Right? Efficient, right, from a company perspective, but what's the disadvantages? Employee dissatisfaction, right? Breaking of psychological contract, right? Demotivational, right? You can say already a lot of things, right? That's the thing. Okay? I think I need more time. I don't know. It seems like we cannot take more time. Let's see. Okay. Next is this Peter Senge Learning Organization. Peter Senge Learning Organization. Now, the British airline case about the initial 10 years, everything is about learning organization. Peter Senge Learning Organization is applicable. Why? If you remember, it's one of the more prominent advocates of learning organization, right? Learning organization theory believes in employee self-directed learning to build capacity for the organization to adapt to changes instead of top-down management-led changes, right? So Peter Senge is also learning organization. Learning organization, the key characteristic is that employee learn and adapt. Instead of management tell the employee what to do, what to change, right? How to change. So that's important. That's the characteristic of learning organization. Now, Peter Senge's approach, right, in terms of the learning organization is like this, right? If you remember, it has got 4 aspects. What is that? We have a different slide earlier, which is this one, I think, right? I'm adding this one here, the table here for you, which is better, huh? Personal mastery, system thinking, mental model, student shared vision, and team learning. Okay. So you yourself must have the capacity to learn as a personal mastery, and then you need to think the organization as a system and not independent, isolated. Right? And mental model, then you need to be aware of assumptions and self-image and all that, right? So initially, the BA employee, they want them to be self-inspired, think that they are good, think the company is good, and all that. Create all those mental models, you know, and train the employee, let the employee have the capacity to serve customer better, you know, and manage their process and whatnot better and all that. So there's a lot of personal mastery there. Okay, and then building the shared visions, make sure employees share the vision of where the company want to go and all that stuff. Right? So there's a lot of team learning. So it's entirely the Peter Senge learning principles. Okay, what they are doing is completely in line with Peter Senge model. Okay. Next is this David Kuberaider's appreciative inquiry or positive model. So this model again should have been covered in your lecture 1 or 2, if I'm not wrong. Lecture 2 should be, okay? An approach of identifying and focusing on organization strengths instead of improving on organization's weakness. Maximizes organization's strength to compete effectively in marketplace, useful when company's resources limited. This approach works in this way. What is the strength of the organization? Like Apple, when they're small, their strength in the organization is what? Doing all the sexy, nice design, lifestyle thing, right? That's the strength, right? Right? And they just keep doing that. They just keep focused and make it better and better and better and better, right? They don't spend time improving the organization or making sure people participative, making sure, you know, communication is good. Until today, it's the same, you know. In the whole organization, Apple, only 50 people know what is happening. The rest of the people don't know what's happening now, right? There's basically no communication, right? and they never involve the employee in decision making. No such chance. Correct, huh? But they keep focusing on doing the nice gadgets, the lifestyle thing, training. That's where their strength is, right? So that's how they keep focusing on that, and it's appreciative inquiry. What's your strength? Keep working on your strength. They basically completely ignore their weaknesses. Right? Can win also in the marketplace like that. Interesting. This model only used in specific case, and I suspect that in the case study, not much chance to use it. Yeah, but at least get to know. Huh? Yeah. Okay, next one is this Michael Porter's competitive advantage theory, and I think this one most of you would have studied one way or another in other subjects also, if I'm not wrong, right? Some of you from India, I believe you might not have studied this. India team, can some of you confirm if you have studied Michael Porter's theory? India team?
No.
None of you have studied the Michael Porter theory?
No.
Okay, if you have not, then here is Michael Porter's theory. His theory says what? If you want to win in the marketplace, you either create differentiation, which is called differentiator strategy. You can drive three kinds of strategy. One is differentiator strategy, another is cost leadership strategy, another is called focus strategy. So three strategy to win in the marketplace, to be competitive in the marketplace. Only three strategy according to him. Right? Apple, for instance, is a differentiator strategy. They are never cheap. Their product is never cheap, right? They are very expensive, but they have a differentiator. LV bags, for example, is it cost leadership or differentiation strategy? Differentiator strategy, right? Walmart's supermarket, is it differentiator strategy or cost leadership strategy? Cost leadership strategy, right? Focus. Is Toyota focus strategy? Reliable and cost-effective car. Yes, they keep making those reliable and cost-effective cars, right? Is Daiso focus? Cost and focus. Actually, they are more focused. They are not so much about cost. $2 is not the cheapest anyway, right? But it's focused. They just keep doing that $2 thing. Okay? Yeah, it's more focused, right? Yeah, focus means you just focus on something that you do well and you keep working on that so that the competitor find it very difficult to compete with you. That's the whole idea. Okay? And when you focus, it could mean that your cost and your cost may not be the best, but people know you are the best at doing that. You know, right? And your product may not be very unique, but people know you are the best guy if they want to get the best product on that, you know. So that's what focus is about. Okay? So I personally believe that in the real world, only Michael Porter's theory Michael Porter theory is still very valid in today's world. Very, very true. And a lot of organizations actually use this theory to compete in the marketplace. Okay? So you can use this to analyze the case if you want. I think just now you have seen some examples already. I don't need to explain anymore. Okay?
Yeah, that's why this is part of the economics subject.
Yeah, I think in economic subject, definitely you will study this one for sure. Okay? He's actually an economist, actually. He is an economist, right? Okay, then next is McKinsey's 7S framework. McKinsey's 7S framework is also very popular in the business world.
Yeah, marketing, right? Basically, marketing.
Marketing, It's true, it's also the marketing tool. That's why in the academic world, typically their model is not used, right? But if you want to use for this course, you can. Where's my cursor? So basically, the model is covering. It's a little bit like Burke-Litwin's model. Okay, they cover different aspects of an organization that you need to change. Okay, so they say if you want to change your organization, you should look at each of these aspects: structure, system, style, leadership style, then staff, skills, strategy. All this you need to look at what need to be changed in order to be successful. Now you can use it lah. You can use it to analyze a company. Maybe the organization has made some change in the structure, right? But then they forgot about skills maybe, or they didn't change the skills of the employee. Therefore, the employee cannot be successful. Right? The training is not enough to allow the company to succeed, right? And then also you need to have the shared values thing, right? So maybe the employee don't share the values, therefore it becomes not successful, kind of thing. Right? So you can use this to analyze the case itself. Which aspect the company will have done okay, which aspect the company may not have covered. Lastly is this Oldham and Hackman's job characteristic theory. And I think I covered this one a bit, if I'm not wrong. Right? If you remember, this job characteristic theory says what? There's a formula, right? There's a formula. I hope I have it here. Let me see. It's not here. Yeah, this one. I think I covered this if I'm not wrong. Okay. Remember the employee motivational potential score? That means the motivation of the employee is equal to skill variety plus task identity plus task significance divided by 3 multiplied by autonomy and feedback. This is Oldham and Hackman's theory, job characteristic theory. In a nutshell, this one means that in order to motivate employee to perform better, you need to focus on improving the skill variety, task identity, task significance, as well as autonomy and feedback. Make sure that you give more empowerment, give more autonomy, and make sure you give enough feedback to get enough employee satisfaction, right? Or higher performance. So that's the Oldham and Hackman's job characteristic theory. How can you use it? Well, you can use it in a case where, if you look at the case study, and it describes that the management often have communication with the employee to give feedback with the employee to make sure that their performance is in line with the expectations, right? Then you can say that, oh, according it's quite clear that the organization has a lot of feedback to where the management give feedback to the employee to let the employee know where they are performing and what to improve or what to make better, right? This is according to Oldham and Hackman's theory. The feedback is definitely a mechanism that it's one of the aspects of the 5 aspects that will improve the performance of the employee or improve the motivational performance of the employee. Therefore, this is definitely a very the very right thing that the company will have done to increase the chance of success. Something like that. Okay, that gives you an idea, huh? Okay. Then obviously there are other aspects of things or concept in organization change which is very important. That include what? Outsourcing, insourcing. Okay, so organization need to be successful in outsourcing. These are all structural change also, huh? Structural change also. Strategic partnership. So you can say that whether the company has such. These are keywords you want to use in your case study answer. Okay, in your exam. Employee empowerment, positive resistance. Now, positive resistance is a very important thing. Some of you mentioned in your assignment 1, but didn't mention it well. You know what's positive resistance? Huh? Resistance with a valid reason. For instance, the employee believe that there is a better way of doing things, there, but then the management didn't listen to them, therefore they resist the change. But they actually are the expert on that topic. For example, in the past, we have one case whereby Steve Jobs wanted to change the supply chain in such a way that he wanted to implement JIT just in time, right? But then the marketing manager resisted that, right? He said, no, this is not going to work because our product nature is very unique, right? And we want to provide very good maintenance service to the customers and all that. So if you implement JIT, it will jeopardize that strength of us to the customers and we will lose the market share. Yeah. Okay? So that's why it's a thing. So there are other things that I think I encourage you guys to read up all this and do a bit of self-reading, right? And please make sure you read up on the British Airline case for the next class, and we use the British Airline case to study and ask you guys to implement I will give you guys a set of questions, and then you need to come back with answers, and we don't need to write down, but at least discuss about it and what theory you can plug in to answer those kind of questions. Next week we'll discuss that. Prerequisite, please read the British Airline case, okay? Alright.
Yes.
With that, I think we can end the class here. Thank you, class, for your time. I hope that's